Hey, welcome to a Christian business podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron, with Redeemed Roofing and Exteriors, and our new co-host,
Justin Curtis. I don't need to plug my businesses.
Oh,
it's
I
fine.
am all about plugging my business.
I'm not going to do that. But today we are here with Spencer Tellkamp, talking about his life and all the things that he has done so far. Yeah, it should be good. I'm excited.
Justin is looking at Spencer's resume here.
Okay, so I mean, you had this set up before I was even a part of this, and you said, "Oh yeah, on this day on 31st, we're going to do Spencer Tellkamp." I was like, "That's brilliant," because there's a lot we can cover. Because Spencer and I have a history too, as far as how I met Spencer as some snot-nosed 19-year-old who came dressed up and sold me insurance, but actually saved me a lot of money, so it was really awesome. Yeah, and it's kind of cool to see how all this works, and I can kind of see like from going from that to doing what you're doing, but I'll let you tell that.
All right.
So what's up, man?
Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Do you have a devotion we can kick off with?
Yeah, I do. I was kind of tossing around what to talk about and kind of where I've been lately, and need to pull out my Bible app, which is on my phone. I don't. Maybe this is just a Spencer thing, but in business, it can kind of feel like almost a emotional roller coaster from day to day, and it kind of got me thinking about what do we focus on, and it reminded me of Matthew 14. So I'm going to read that. Matthew 14. 22 through 33, and this is talking about when Jesus walks on water and called Peter out of the boat. And it says immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. And after he dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain to pray by himself. When evening came, he was there alone, but the boat by this time was a long away from land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. And in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It's a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it's you, command me to come out onto the water." And he said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." I guess what I've been thinking about is, many times in our personal lives, but especially in business for me, running your own business can kind of bleed into your personal life a little bit. And a big focus day to day is, talk to my wife, how was your day? And she asks, how was my day? And it was good, or it was challenging, or this or that. And, you tend to start depending on yourself for the result of whether your day was a good day, or the results of your employees or the project you're working on. And you base that on whether it was a good day or not. And I think that can be tough in life to separate that out from what you're supposed to be focusing on, which is Jesus and what's the overall goal. And in verse 30, where it says Peter saw the wind, and it got me thinking, how do you see the wind? The wind's invisible. So he wasn't actually seeing the wind. He was seeing what the results of the wind. He was looking at the waves and the storm. But in our minds, how often do we, quote unquote, see the wind? We can blame it on COVID, supply chain, a crumbling economy, employees, customers that owe you money because you got to pay people you owe money to. And we get really wrapped up in seeing the wind when it's just we're feeding into that fear of everything but our focus on Jesus. And so that was kind of my thought on how important it is in business and in your personal walk to just keep your sight on Jesus, and where do you find fulfillment?
Right. And I think, going back to the episode with Randy McDonald, he was talking about our failure to see the blessing even in the difficult times, like our failure to see the blessing. And I think that's part of it, is the focus on Christ. And you said something there. You said the keeping our eyes on Jesus. And, you have to ask yourself, is the mission of God, is the kingdom of God limited by the fact that you have a client that's not paying a bill so you can't pay a vendor? Does that affect the kingdom? And so even though that's happening, it still could be a good day, because something may have happened kingdom-wise. Maybe somebody in your organization has seen you be able to weather that, and you got a bookkeeper that's like, hey, a bank account's getting low, and you're able to be like, yeah, but we had 2 really good conversations with a couple of guys, that were struggling in their family, and we were able to just pour into them and bless them. So I like that. I like that, keeping your eyes off the wind and on Jesus.
I think that's something too, like, as believers, that's really what makes us different. Is you have to, being in business, you have to know what your numbers are. You have to know what makes your business tick. But at the same time, you're called to love and lead the people you have around you. And that at times will take precedence. I think of like Doug Scott, and he will hire people solely on the fact that he wants to disciple them.
Right.
No skill set whatsoever. But
Yep.
because I feel like God is calling me to disciple you, I'm going to take a chance, and I'm probably going to lose money. But yeah, it doesn't make sense to anybody else. But for what I have between me and God, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that even with my dad when he owned the business, and he always called them his projects.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Right.
So, we always jokingly referred to him as, oh, that's one of Dan's projects,
Yeah.
But it was just being around those people. Yeah, most of the time it really didn't work out. Mm-hmm. It wasn't good for the business, but there are lasting relationships because of those.
Yeah, and maybe it didn't work out in business, but how awesome was that? Like, I don't know, like I think about when I was at Tender Lawn Care, and every time, whatever job I've ever had has been a matter of like, well, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is my mission. What is this going to look like? And so I would always hear from the guys that I would mow with, like, you don't want them. They are the worst second guy to have on your crew. It's like, well, I'll take them. And really, it's just, they're just kind of misunderstood, or no, actually, they really should not be here. But right. I wanted to be able to see for myself. And you always wonder too, is like, well, maybe they just haven't been given a fair shake in life. So who knows?
Let's give them a fair shake and see what happens.
Yeah.
So Spencer, start us kind of at the beginning, as far as your faith walk, like your personal story. You've heard the podcast before, kind of where people go. Kind of take us there, and where'd Spencer come from?
Yeah, so I accepted Christ at a really young age of about 4 years old, and I was in my grandparents' single-wide trailer and asked my grandma about Jesus and heaven, and she explained kind of the steps. And you look back at that young age, and I've heard people talk about, you don't have this massive, like, transformational, I was really lost, and I was 30 years old before I found Jesus. And I've always felt like that was kind of by the grace of God that, he came into my life so early, and I see the definite from that lifelong walk because of that.
Got you. Was there like some kind of period where, like beyond that, were there any like really heavily influential moments other than that, teenage years, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I got pretty plugged into youth group in high school and had some really influential youth group leaders. Eric and Sherry Montambo come to mind, and went on a mission trip to Moody Bible Institute between my freshman and sophomore year. And we did street witnessing in Chicago and apologetic training. And it was just I kind of pegged that week as you've always been a Christian for a long time and had a relationship with the Lord, but I kind of pegged that week as the week that you kind of put legs underneath that faith, and it was transformational.
Kind of became your own at that point.
Yeah.
And then you graduated high school, stayed close to home, yeah?
I went to Pensacola Christian College for about a semester, and I was going for pre-physical therapy. I was going to go into the medical field, and went down there for a semester, and I wasn't enjoying what I was doing as far as school, and decided to move back home, and I worked for my dad for that about 9 months in between college, and then that next start of the school year in the fall, I started going to Muskegon Community College for business, and I started interning at Newaygo Insurance Agency at the same time.
Got you. So Dad owned the excavating business at that time.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
and so you were working for Dad in the excavating business. Did you grow up working with him a lot on the end of a shovel or anything? Or
Oh,
was
yeah.
that kind of okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I cut my teeth on the shovel. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So
I'm going to back up just a little bit. You became a teacher. You went to Moody for that trip. Do you see, like, that was a heavy moment for you spiritually? Do you see a difference in pre-Moody Spencer and post-Moody Spencer, or just a little bit more passionate about Christ?
I don't see a huge difference, to be honest. It's more of a, like, you came away with, here are the tools and the confidence to share your testimony and to share Christ. So I'm I'd like to say, like, process-oriented person. And so
I would agree.
that's kind of, I would say that helped my process. And this is some questions you can ask, and here's an experience to draw from to talk about your faith. So
Right. Okay. So you had the tools to lean into kind of that more evangelistic, almost a methodical way of approaching what you had always kind of wanted to do and felt and desired, but didn't really have the right tool bag to carry that out.
yeah.
Got you. And you've done some ministry work. You've worked with some youth ministry, right?
Yep. We did youth group for about 5 years at Grace.
Okay. Enjoyed that time.
It was great.
Okay. What do you think was most impactful of that time on you?
I would say just long-term relationships with kids that they desire truth, and they might not agree 100% because of what the world might be telling them or what their friends are telling them, but that there was such an impression of hunger for truth that it was fun to have those conversations and tough conversations with teenagers. They're developing who they're going to be as adults.
Right.
What an opportunity.
Right. Absolutely. So let's kind of shift that over a little bit into business world. You mentioned that you went to college for business for like 6 months and was like, and then you started an internship selling insurance.
Yeah, so I went to college for pre-physical therapy, then went back, and I actually was at MCC at the same time that I was at Newaygo Insurance Agency.
Got you.
So I do like 2 12-hour school days, and then I could work the other 3 days of the week at the agency. And
Got
so
you.
I was taking business classes, but I was learning more about business working at the insurance agency.
Yep.
Yeah, big time.
That's usually how it goes.
Well, absolutely, because you were leaning into the business
Yeah.
insurance, the liability and comp and all that kind of stuff. So got you. So probably learned from a lot of great guys too.
Yep.
And gals. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely.
Way to go. Just making everybody mad.
Oh, that's I don't mind at all. So fire me. Anyway, you were working at the insurance agency. What shifted you back into excavating?
So I really did enjoy working in the insurance agency and enjoyed the customers I was working with. Most of all, Justin Curtis. He was great. But I just found myself, I remember pulling into my dad's shop one day, and it was like in between like third winter and, fourth spring.
Right.
In Michigan. And it was like half snowing, half sleeting.
I love the way he put that.
Yeah.
It's
was
so
good.
true.
I was trying to think through that. I was like, third winter, fourth spring. So this is
Yeah.
like his third year in doing insurance.
No,
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I got you now.
Yes, what we've had this year, right?
Yes.
Right, like
Yeah.
it snows like 14 inches, and
Yeah.
then
Melts.
the next day it's 47 degrees outside.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was like raining and sleeting and doing whatever it was doing, and I got this tie on and I'm comfortable. I got a suit jacket on, and I pull in, and Dad had just been out in it, and he was doing something, and he's like just got in his truck, all wind burnt, coveralls on, sipping on a cup of coffee, and I pegged that as the moment of I was so jealous, and to this day I don't really know why, but I was jealous of him being out in it, and that's the moment I was like, man, something's got to change.
Yeah,
That quick.
that was it, huh?
That was it.
No kidding.
Yeah. I felt bad
Oh.
for my wife. I waited like 3 months to tell her because she married an insurance agent.
I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks a little bit different.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Well, but I like there's always that struggle because I mean I'm in sales, right? And I can like I get I wanted to build houses, right? And I love framing, like, and I'm okay at it, but I'm not fast enough to make money at it, and I love doing it, but at this point I think it was a shift for me because I do love sales as well, and I could make more money in sales and provide for my family better in sales. And so I think sometimes I do miss it. I miss that feeling at the end of that. I mean, when I was working for Justin on the end of a shovel, we'd be building a boulder wall or something. I get done at the end of the day and I couldn't move. To drive home after like
With
just
the shakes.
wrench it, with the shakes, wrenching your body all day around on the side of this hill, throwing 150-pound boulders around, and so you can't even get out of the car when you get home, and that feels good. You talk about Dad being windburnt with the coveralls on and sitting down with a cup of coffee. That's an awesome feeling. But for me, at the same time, I had to back up and say, yeah, but I can't make as much money doing that as I can in sales. So it was, wow, that felt good. So, I think I do get probably complacent a little bit, and it's like, nah, I don't want to take the trash out tonight. I'm good. but you want to go build a rock wall? Sure.
Let's
it's
go.
Weird.
Right.
It's
Right.
weird.
No, because I kind of want to back up. Like, so, I mean, to put it in perspective, most of the people that I deal with in business that have businesses, especially insurance guys, are not 19 years old. So when you came walking in and like, yeah, I'll give you a quote on your insurance, I was like, right.
Right.
Sure you will.
Right.
And I kid you not. Okay, so he came in with that to a podcast. Dude, I had a 3-ring binder, like with our name on the front of it. Like, it was already sold. Like, there was no doubt. It's like, yep, we're just going to go with Spencer because I've never had a presentation like this. But it was super professional. You're like definitely process guy. Like, that's, it was awesome.
I got to give a lot of credit to Dan Johnson too, because he kind of polished a lot of those skills up and helped me through that. And like I utilize what I learned during the insurance days every day of what I do now. So
yeah, because he's got his I don't know. There's 2 people have been super prepared for this, like notes and everything. Spencer's one of them.
Yep.
And he's got a page of like I'm seeing like bar graphs and color pictures
Yes.
and like contact. It's awesome. It is so not me.
I sat down this morning. I was like, I am not ready for this interview. Like, it's been a while since I've put together a resume, but I better just throw some things down.
So I don't forget. Yeah.
Would you like us to go through some of it so you can hear?
No,
let's-
it's the
this is-
shortest resume.
This
I've
is
worked 2
Spencer
places.
Spencer Tellkamp, and so he's got some mad skills: people management, customer experience, equipment operation, organization, and organization. I would say is his top,
Yeah.
but he has customer experience higher. I'm looking at this paper. I'm going to say organization is top.
But that's tied to the customer.
That is tied to the
experience.
customer experience. So.
Which mine was amazing. And then he had to leave, and I was upset. But,
Yeah.
it was pretty abrupt.
Yeah.
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 Like, even Dan wasn't ready for it.
So nobody was really ready for it. Yeah.
So you're sitting there. You come to this conclusion that something's got to change, and so then what? So then you don't tell your wife for 3 months. Like, are you drawing up paperwork? Are you just thinking about it? Are you not sleeping? Like, what does that look like?
No, I honestly, those things, I hear of people losing sleep at night. And I can't really think of ever losing sleep over a decision, or it just doesn't faze me. The Lord's got it. So, I mean, there was a lot of just kind of self-reflection and just kind of praying about it, and then talking to my wife about it. And we prayed about it for probably about 7 to 8 months before we.
I thought he was going to say hours.
Yeah.
Normally,
I don't
we
lose
are
sleep
very,
over it. We
very
just decide
quick
fast.
decision makers, but this was a big deal, and we really took a long time to make the decision, and so yeah, that was in the spring, and I ended up leaving the insurance agency that following February. So it was
About a year.
Okay, so you left the insurance agency and started working, or you left the insurance agency and signed papers in February so it was yours?
So no, I went back to work for my dad, and so that's what I had kind of was tossing around. That's what I decided I wanted to do, was because growing up, I did not want to be an excavator. The hours were terrible. It was hard work, and the people were rough, and it wasn't a ton of fun. And then that summer in between my college experiences, when I just worked for my dad, I really enjoyed it. Like
Gotcha.
it was a different perspective. And then, so coming back from the insurance agency and then jumping into project management for my dad, I couldn't run an excavator. I couldn't run a bulldozer. I didn't have my CDL yet. I was like
All of the requirements.
all the requirements that I would look for when I hire I didn't have them.
So your dad brought you back. Why?
I don't know.
It's a really expensive shovel.
I was pretty decent on a skid loader. I'll give myself that.
Okay. Okay.
But so we had a good sized job up in Cadillac. We were digging a 3-acre pond when I came back. And so what I decided was, even though I don't know how to do these things, I'm a really good communicator. And so if we're up in Cadillac for a 2-3 month project and Dad doesn't have to be up here, I'm worth it. And so I can take the extra time, and there's a bulldozer on site here and there's an excavator on site here. I can train myself. I got 2 months to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And so I was just the kind of the eyes on site, and hey, this is going on. This is where we're at. And I think he made 2 site visits up there.
In 2 months?
Yeah.
That felt good.
So
yeah.
it felt good.
Yeah. I got no idea what I'm doing, but hey, Dad, I got this.
Nobody else knew that.
I don't know how to do stuff. I know how to make it look like I know how to do
Yes.
stuff.
Right.
That's me in the piano. Like I suck at piano, but I know how to make it look like I can play the piano.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
you're in kind of this project management type position and just kind of living life and just working harder, learning more. How long were you back with that before you're like, hey, I think I want to?
That was a conversation we had before I came back. We had a 5-year plan that I've always wanted to own my own business. I had opportunity before I came back to, have long-term aspirations at Newego Insurance, and I still had that desire to have my own company. And so we had that conversation. We had kind of a 5-year plan, and from the time I came back, it was almost exact. It was like 4 years and 1 month after I came back, I bought the business.
Got you. Okay. So signed paperwork, transferred over, and now it's yours. Does Dad still work in the business?
Yeah, that was what was cool. I ran the day-to-day a year before I bought the business. So I did all our dispatching, all our scheduling. I pretty much do what I do now before I bought the business. And so our roles never changed. And so
Got it.
that was a really important.
That's a good way to do it.
It was an important thing for both Dad and I was, if we can do this and nobody really knows about it unless we tell them, we did it well. And I would say we did pretty.
Okay,
so
I'm not gonna lie. I did not know that. I didn't know when it happened or anything like that. So,
right.
Well done.
Thank you.
Real well.
Well, because I remember when I was working for you, Justin, we go pick up material over there every once in a while, and you'd always talk about Dan and Dan and Dan, and I and then I started going to church at Grace, and it's like, oh, this Spencer Tellkamp. I'm like, why do I know that name? And so then it was right around. Yeah, because how long's it been?
Just 2 years.
Yeah, so it was right around the time that we started coming there that you were changing things over. So
Yeah.
That's cool.
I try to keep it Dan, and that way they keep calling him, and I just kind of fly under the radar.
That's awesome. It's not a bad way
They're
to
like,
do it.
"You gonna change the name?" I'm like, "Why? If
Why
you
would
get
I
a
do
pissed
that?
off customer calling up, you just let
That's
me get you
Dan's
Dan."
fault.
let me get you Dan.
Yeah.
You want to talk to the man.
Yeah.
That's who
Yeah.
you want to talk to. But it's the word's
That's
getting out
funny.
because I had reached out to Rick Steenstra and he said, who you ought to talk to is Spencer Tellkamp. I'm like, yeah, I should. I think I actually had you on my list when I first started. I had like 17 people, and I had all but 3 requested and confirmed that they would be willing, except you and 2 others. And so I have 2
Nice.
others that I'm chasing down right now. But yeah, so you're on a day to. Are you dealing with employees a lot on a regular basis, or
Yeah.
you have?
Yeah. Yep. So the employee dispatching, anything that runs through the business, I've got my hands on. So we do have set project managers that, like my dad is a project manager. We have Dirk, who's a project manager. He came from he had a 40-year career at a different excavation company in Grand Rapids, and so he's helped us diversify into some public work and some municipality work and things like that. So
kind of get a good mix of clients. I think a good mix of clients everywhere. That we were just talking about that for our business, of some contractor business, some residential business, referral business, that kind of stuff. But I guess for the the bigger stuff, bigger projects, excavators. But there's quite a bit of competition toward those municipal projects and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It just depends on what it is. It's just about like anything else. I mean, we win some and we lose some.
Sure.
So the challenge with that kind of work is, they typically just go with whoever's low bid
on it.
Right.
And
right.
So you might have something figured in that the other guy doesn't, or they might have something figured in that you don't, and it's a little bit different. So it's nice to have somebody that's done it for 40 years and kind of knows how to look at it.
Right,
So-
and know what they're looking for.
I mean, he must have been pretty decent if he kept a job for 40 years.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah, he does well, and I'd say that's a big thing that the Lord's really blessed us with is people, and not only just capable people, but we've got just a good group of moral people, and that doesn't mean everybody that works there is a believer. But we have overall good people, and we have project people still too. But when people ask, "Hey, how's it going?" I love sharing this because just a few weeks ago we had one of our guys and his wife start coming to church with us, and 2 weeks later they accepted Christ.
Wow.
And
That's awesome. Praise
that's
God.
what when people ask how it's going, it's like, man, we got so much opportunity, not just in work, but with our employees. And so it's really cool.
Well, I think it says something too. I mean, if people see how you're living and who you are as a person, people start questioning, like, why is he doing this? Why is he like this? Why? It's because you're not, I don't know, you're going to be a little bit different than everybody else, especially in the type of fields that we're in. Like
Right.
construction, excavation, landscaping. I mean, guys are rough around the edges, even roofing.
That's why they're there.
Yeah.
Is because they're rough in such a way that other industries they would not.
Yeah,
They
they
would
would
not
not
do
do
well
well.
in.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess one of my goals though is to change that stereotype, at least for us.
Yep.
It's like,
Yeah.
you know what we offer is what we do. I think is just so much fun. Like we can take something that's just woods or just empty farm field and turn it into a multi-million-dollar apartment complex, or whatever the project is, and you see what it looks like when it's done versus what it started. And in today's world of technology, you literally sit in a climate controlled machine watching a screen do all the work for you. Just hit a button and grade it off, and you just it's literally takes it's so stress free in a lot of ways, and where you're at for grade, and what that project looks like, and it can be just a ton of fun, and it can be really, really frustrating and really, really hard, and you're not always in AC day after day after day, but there's satisfaction in what we do, that you don't have to be a rough person and be stuck excavating. You can be a white collared angled person and just like being outside, and there's room for you in our industries.
Right. I was at a luncheon yesterday for youth and internship and youth employment, and they just that concept of changing the industry. I mean, young people kind of not like we got told so many times, go to school, get good grades so you can get into a good college, so you can get good grades so you can get a good job. And like I don't think we've really talked to many people on the podcast. I'm just trying to think through all of them who really spent a whole lot of time in college. And very, very successful people, and people that enjoy what they do and have a huge impact. And so I went to this luncheon yesterday to kind of see what was going on, and like, okay, where are we, and you got manufacturing and you got office work in there. And that's fantastic that people are like, looking to engage youth. But this was through the vocational school here in Nueva County, through NC RISA and the Tech Center. And so that concept of, look, there are opportunities in the world that don't necessarily involve a 4-year degree, because I think we set kids up for failure. We have this concept of you got to go to school, and so you have these guidance counselors that went to school, and so they're like, well, this is the way you succeed is by going to college. Well, this is because that's how I succeeded. Well, hold on just a minute. There are plenty of people who are very successful in what they do who didn't go to college. Now, so it's not for everybody, but we've been sold that it's for everybody for so long.
Right.
So that was cool to be a part of that yesterday. But yeah, if you got young people, if you got kids, or you got, friends at church or whatever, and there's a kid that's interested in something, man, just encourage them. Because like, they're like, well, yeah, I was going to kind of go get my basics out of the way at college. And I'm like, one kid said that to me last week. I was like, why?
Right.
Well, I know. Well, do you know what you want to do? Well, no. So that's why I thought I'd get my basics. Just go to work, dude.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, for real.
Just go flip burgers. Go do something. And, go stand on the end of a shovel, right? And see where you want to go. I don't like this. I want to maybe move into it.
Well, I think that's part of the problem. Like going into college, you're like, oh my gosh, college is so much money. Well, I need to figure out what I'm going to do. Whereas, like, if you can just go to work, you'll work at a place for a long enough time to the point where you're like, yep, I don't like this. All right, let's try something else. That's what I did after college. Is I was every 3 months until I landed on lawn care, and I was like, yep, this is what we're doing. And and then it just kind of spirals off to do different things. But that's where where God had us. And I don't know, because then I think about, like, okay, I have all this experience in all these other fields, and little did I know that Serena and I would own a construction company, and
right.
I've done all of the trades that lead up to it and that do it. So it's very hard for an electrician or a plumber or a guy that cuts concrete to pull something over my eyes, because, well, I've done every single one of those things.
Right.
But I don't know. And I think some of it too, and like I talked about it when I was on my episode, that you don't have to go into like a vocational ministry, but whatever you're going to do, you're doing it for the Lord. Like I think about like the verse that we have for Northwoods and really for Overbuilt too would be that Colossians 3:23, whatever you're doing it with all your heart, as if you're working for the Lord and not men. You encompass that, Spencer, like 100% from a 19-year-old kid. Like you were very well put together and you had a great presentation. But like in even how our core values were structured around that verse, and you see it like Ray and I have been doing reviews these last couple weeks, our annual reviews, and just talking with the guys and talking through and seeing them become more engaged in like, hey, what are your goals? Like we're like, I don't put goals in place, but because we've been talking about them for so long, now they're starting to think about like, oh,
what do I want?
What do I want? And why does it look like, and why can't I go do something like that? So I don't know. Let's go, man.
You had touched on that kind of the concept of college. It costs a lot of money. And I always, I do a comparison with people because I've got a buddy who's an electrician, and he's got his master card, but he wants to work for, he doesn't want his own thing. And I use that as a comparison. And so I ask people, what's it cost to get a bachelor's degree? Okay. And $45,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. It depends on where you go. And what kind of income are you looking at when you come out of that bachelor's degree? And I remembered when I was selling insurance over the phone, I was training people who had master's degrees to do a $35,000 a year job. And so I'm like, okay, let's say you come out and you get a job in your field and you're making, $65,000 a year. Well, my buddy came out of high school. Well, he went to the military, but he didn't have any, college education. So he had no student loan debt, and he started pulling wire, and he was making, I don't know, at that time, $12-13 an hour or something. Well, then he's working 2 years to get his journeyman, and he bumps up to, I don't know, $15-17 an hour, and then he's, or an apprenticeship, and then journeyman, and by the time he was done, we calculated remove cost of living, and the dollar difference. We did the math one time, and it was like $140,000 ahead by the time his 6-year quotes degree was done as an electrician, and he's making $75,000 a year working for somebody else as an electrician, when somebody else has $60,000 to $70,000 in debt to get to that point. And but at any time, had he jumped ship and said, I want to be a plumber, or I want to be a landscaper, or I want to go sell insurance, it would have cost him nothing. Mm-hmm. He would have lost nothing because he was earning money all that time. So now you reduce the risk factor. And so somebody's like, well, I want to get my basics out of the way. It's like, no, don't do that. Wait, no.
Right.
Go to work.
A cost that's often overlooked when you're going to college is you're losing income at the same time. Even if you're making $12-15 an hour somewhere, you're still not taking in that income when you're in school full time.
Right. You were schooling 12 hours a day, 2 days.
Right.
So you only had 3 days left to work.
You got it. And a lot of people, like I technically was still full time at college when I was doing that, but a lot of people don't do that. They just commit to school, which they have to for whatever they're doing. That's understandable.
You can't draw that bachelor's degree out for 6 years because you're paying living expenses to live on campus or whatever else.
Yeah, so if that degree costs you, just say $150,000, that's fine, but you still got at least another $100,000 to $150,000 in lost revenue, and once that's gone, I mean that's gone.
You can't get it back. And
no.
People who get a bachelor's degree in hospitality and decide they want to be an engineer, it's like, okay, not only did you spend all that money, I knew a lady. She went to school for hospitality. She graduated with a bachelor's degree and went to work at a hotel. 6 months later, she went back to school to get an engineering degree.
That's crazy.
I'm like, what are you? She's like, I don't want to do this. I'm like, did you think maybe to chill out at a hotel while you were in school? But then the other piece to that is, and I think, the core of it when we start talking about what's going on in the kingdom is that, okay, you're 12 hours a day at school and you're, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day at a job. And now you're financially strapped. And so you're worried about financial stresses. Well, how are you going to pour into other people? How are you going to grow the kingdom? How are you going to be about God's business if you're spending all this time trying to find yourself or figure yourself out or learn to get started, all that kind of stuff. Like it has a huge impact on your ministry to the world around you, I think.
Yeah.
I think so. I think some of that, though, you can be fabricating and looking at the wind. Because, like, when we got started, we got married. We built a house because the housing market was just starting to take off. And I'm not like certain people, and I am not good with a hammer. Like, I can demo a house with an excavator now.
With an excavator now.
But if you
way
want
more
me to,
fun than a
like,
hammer.
yeah, definitely. Like, we have had full-blown fights over hanging pictures, and it's not because my wife's wrong, and hopefully she doesn't listen to this episode, but,
She
like,
will.
it's because I can't,
Do we need to throw
two
an edit in
nails
there?
in the-
Do we need to throw an edit in there?
So, like, we priced it out, and we ended up building, like, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath for our slab on grade, just a really simple house. And it was the better buy. It was a little more money. But we were strapped pretty tight financially. And she was still finishing up her senior year of college. And if we had $900 in the bank account, we were doing great.
Yeah.
Right.
And, we look back at those times and we talk about them and, like, man, those were just as good or better than now. I mean, and we were involved in church. And so I think no matter what your situation is, like, you can focus on the situation, or you can focus on what you should be looking at and keep your eyes on the reward and keep your eyes on what Christ has for you. And you can be, that doesn't say just go out and be irresponsible and, hey, I'm
There's a balance.
3.5 years into my engineering degree, and you know what? I want to go be a roofer.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
If that's what you want to do, fine. But you are responsible to pay that debt.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And
right.
so, maybe suck it up for 6 more months and get your degree, and then go try roofing. But
right.
we're responsible for the situations we put ourselves in.
Right.
But if our heart's truly like, how can I serve the Lord no matter what situation I'm in? I think that's what we're called to do.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying I know what you're saying.
Right. Well, and there's a balance to it, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, and I think we're both in the same place of, kind of speaking from both sides of it. Like, yeah, that doesn't mean that you can't build the kingdom if you're $45,000 in student loan debt and your degree is not something you want to work in. That's not the case. I think as business owners and as people of God and as people connected into communities and churches and having young people around us, I think it's important to be aware of the fact that it's been pushed for so long, and it's like almost this stigma in the trades that can be encouraged outside of the trades for those types of reasons. Because as much as, okay, yeah, we can still focus on the kingdom, yeah, but $45,000 in debt that really didn't do much for you is not necessarily the best thing in the world. At the same time, yes, I mean, the college campuses are a huge ministry, right? And
Right.
like, I'm never going to have that ministry because I'm never going to college.
Right.
I don't think. God's up there
Watch.
laughing, be like, watch this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it's even recorded too.
Yeah.
So,
You remember that time?
but at the same time, that that's not to say that's not to say that God can't use you and you can't be about building the kingdom. I think there is some opportunity for distraction and opportunity to focus on the waves, etc. And if hey, if we can move to the side of the lake where there are fewer waves, let's do that. But you're absolutely right. That doesn't mean that those of us who don't enter that situation don't have other issues that would. I mean, shoot, you can be worried about your finances for 2 hours a night, and I can watch Netflix 2 hours a night, and we're both in the same spot, not benefiting the kingdom at all, right? So
What if you're watching The Chosen?
anyway, can I fire him?
You know you want to.
So bad. So bad. So I was in the middle of something and I had a bunny trail thought, and now it's gone. That's okay.
Yeah. That's good. I forget what I was going to say, too.
Mike,
fine.
you told me to write stuff down last time, dude.
I did.
And I wrote something down at the beginning and then set my tablet down because I got all excited about something. And then now here you are with nothing written down and nothing to say.
I have something written down, but it was from where his devotional came from. I guess one thing too, and I asked it to Grant Swinger last week. How do you feel that it's different in how you treat your employees based upon what you've seen previously, or because you wear Christ? What does that look like for you?
I think,
and maybe it is that, what your dad calls your dad's projects, you inherit those things, or like Doug Scott's like, I'm hiring this guy specifically for discipleship. Like that's our only thing.
like for me, it's where's their opportunity and when are you called to that opportunity? Like when we work with people that are not believers, there's going to be all sorts of extra problems because they're not believers. And, Scripture tells us we're not to expect anything different from them because, again, they're not believers. Yep. That being said, even though they put themselves in certain situations, there's that fine line between what are you called to do and when are you enabling the situation. And I think that answer can be different from one person to the next. But when you look at an employee, I kind of hate that term of employee and boss and this and that.
I hate boss.
I used to call Justin
I hate it
boss
too.
all the time
Every
just to make
day.
him mad.
He'd say, "Hey,
Be like,
boss."
hey, boss, because I knew it ticked him off.
Yeah. And they do the same thing to me, and I don't think they know it. I just don't like it, but they don't know that. Because I got, we have a couple part-time guys that they drive part-time for us, and, they're 70-year-olds to call me boss. It just feels weird. But I do look at our guys as we're more of a team, and then the longer you're with one another, you do become more of a sub-family. And so even though we might not be brothers or sisters in Christ, we still are loosely related. And I'm sure you guys have the same
absolutely.
with people.
Right,
Yep.
right.
So we've got guys that have been with us for 5, 6, 10 years who aren't believers, and there's always stuff, and you look for those opportunities to, if it's monetary or if it's a car or if it's, they're having problems in relationship, how do you push them towards Christ? And, that's the goal.
Right. So, I was listening to another podcast, and they were, the guy, he just barely touched on it. They do a short one. I think it's called The Eternal Entrepreneur. And they do this Monday lunch thing where he does a 10, 15-minute episode. And he was talking about, when we are Christian business owners, there are a lot of people in business now that culture is changing to say, you got to be nice to your employees and you got to care about people and people over profits and all that kind of stuff. And I think there's a part of being a Christian business owner that is that we do people over profits, etc. But the thing he was talking about, and he just barely touched on, and maybe we can get him to come on the show sometime, but is what separates a nice business owner from a Christian business owner? Because a lot of the stuff that we talk about is, being nice to employees and, get somebody a car or give someone a hug who needs one or, all of that. Where does being a nice employer, a moral employer, a good employer break from being a Christian employer?
Well, then,
You got it? Go for it.
I think it boils down to your why. You can be a moral person, and at the end, he's going to look at you and go, I never knew you.
Right.
that's
It's
a
not
scary
right.
verse in the
Right.
Bible.
It is.
Absolutely.
And so,
As well it should be.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
So should it look any different on the outside, I guess is the question. Yes, internally it needs to be because you know Christ and you desire to glorify Christ, and you do that by loving people. But should it look different in any way, shape, or form?
Kind of a broad stroke, because you can have a good employer, but he may not be better than the next good employer, or you have a Christian employer and whose may not be as good as the next Christian employer. I think that's tough, because you still have to have, I don't know. Okay, I'm going to go back to having core values that you absolutely, because that's encompassed by your vision statement, your mission, your why. Why do you exist? I mean, it's over our urinal in our in our bathroom. It's everywhere.
Right.
But it's that thing of, because then it still allows you to be, I think it still allows you to be a good or Christian employer, but you're still operating within a set of rules to where you don't expect everybody to be a believer.
Right.
But
that's
not a prerequisite for working here, but
I don't think it legally can be.
No, it can't be.
Right.
But it is a matter of, well, these are the principles that the business believes, and so here they are spelled out. So you may not know this or not, but this is how we came to this, because of what God has told us to do and what we believe God wants for our business. And so from that point, I mean, whether they know it or believe it or not, that's what it is.
Well, and the heart behind it, in the culture, I think where it comes from is, if they don't have Christ, where it comes from is, I think, a kind of almost a selfish thing. Like, okay, we become more profitable if our people feel loved. Well, okay, then we'll shift and love people. This person's going to work harder if they know that we've got their back. So let's get their back, so they'll work harder. Whereas for us, it's, Doug, I don't care what they bring to the table, I will disciple them. And because Doug is about that faith piece. So in some ways, I think it does look the same as just being a nice employer. In other ways, I don't know how that shows. Is it enough to just be a nice employer as a Christian?
But I think that's even different, though. Like, okay, but you're judging it based on the outward appearance of what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not you don't necessarily understand the mind of the employer. If he's just a good employer, he's a Christian employer, because he's gonna. If he's a Christian employer, he has his team members. He's got their best interest in mind. He is a servant to those around him.
Right.
Whereas a guy who may not be a believer, but he's still a good employer, maybe he's trying to manipulate them to. It's all a heart thing, and you can't see the heart thing.
Weigh in, Spencer.
Yeah, I was where I was at too. I think it's a heart thing. It's no different than trying to judge somebody's salvation. You can't from the outside. That's up to the Lord. But I think the mindset that if we had to put a label on it, as far as there being a difference between just a good moral employer and then a good Christian employer is the mindset of who you're working with eternal or just for this world. And I think that really is what we're talking about.
Write that crap down.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Steve Armstrong, one of my favorite Bible teachers, says, do you have eyes for eternity? Do you have eyes for eternity? Every day that you walk in that door, every day that an employee's there in your office having a review, every day that you're giving instruction, what is our goal? Landscaping? Is our goal digging holes? Our goal is the advancement of the kingdom. And if we're going to do that by digging holes or mowing grass or whatever, I think that will naturally show. I don't think it's something. I think it's a result, not a cause, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I think there's a when you have your own business, you desire to do well in business. You need to be profitable in order to keep going, and that looks different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And you're exactly right. If you have this mindset of this eternal mindset versus just the here and now, the struggle is you do have to be successful in the here and now, even if an employee or a project manager is not doing well on day after day.
Mm-hmm.
To Justin's point, sometimes it's because they need to go do something different, or you need to encourage them to focus in, and your heart behind that is everything. Am I doing this because they just lost me a ton of money? There's probably some truth in that. Yeah, that because you know what? That's what you're judged on in business.
And that's how everybody else on the team survives.
Well, yeah.
You can't just be a Christian business owner and say, well, I'm a Christian, so God's just going to just fill the checkbook. Yeah, he does, but we are responsible to.
It's the parable of the tenants of when they were each given different amounts, and what did they do with it? Like, I didn't want to lose it, so I just buried it. Like, it's that same thing of almost. I don't know. I think you're right in that point because it's not about that interaction between just you two one-on-one. It's the organization itself.
Right. I think I'm going to draw that out a little bit in the sense that, we talked about Doug Scott, or, you guys project people, right? You can't do what you do for the project people or for those people you hire just to disciple if you're not profitable in business. You can't hire a bunch of project people and pay them to do less than they're generating, because you will go out of business, and now you can no longer employ project people as much as I and I cringe every time I say project. Like, I get it, I cringe every because it's it's like when people say love on somebody, I don't know, I just cringe, but we get the concept of people who God has brought into your life that you can serve, right? So we couldn't do that if we were not profitable.
And let's be honest, at some point, each one of us in some capacity or another was a project for somebody.
Well, and as still is, right?
Absolutely. And that might not be talking, your walk with Christ or life project, but Dan Johnson took on a huge project when he hired Spencer Tellkamp. Now, I think Dan Johnson had a good ROI at the end of the day.
Right.
However, there was definitely some polishing that had to happen to take my skills that I had and really hone them in.
Right.
I was somebody's project. And so you have these opportunities, and to circle back to what we were talking about with young people, I think we have just a huge challenge, but also a huge opportunity to take these people that have decided, hey, I do want to be an engineer. And they get through it and they go, man, I just don't like being in the office all the time. Okay, well, guess what? If we have a business that is a good place to work, a fun place to work, a moral place to work, and we are successful enough that we can pay them enough money to make it attractive to them to have a career here because they are educated.
And pay off their student loans, right?
Right?
Yeah.
But we desire those quality people. We want to break the stereotype.
Right.
And so it's a balancing act between, in my mind, it's a balancing act between, like, I could hire an engineer. I have a position for an engineer at my office.
Right.
And it's like, you need to understand math to do excavating. You need to understand CAD, where we're going. I mean, you have to understand the technology and how to lay a site out and how to use GPS and satellites and coordinates. And so you need those people that have that interest. But then you can also take that person that didn't decide to take that path to college, and they went right from high school to a trade and do whatever, and you can still polish on them and work with them too. And so you need to, what our goal is to always be developing a company that keeps Christ first, obviously, but is that attractive place to work for either avenue.
Right. To come from either origin. I think going back to being project people, I think we all need to be project people.
You can't grow unless you are.
You can't. Right. Like you've got mentors, I've got mentors, right? And I think we need to be project people. Somebody once told me you should have a Silas, a Paul, and a Timothy. Somebody who's walking ahead of you, somebody who's walking beside you, and somebody who's walking behind you. And always keep yourself in that position. And that requires project people. And we can't sustain that without solid business practices and profitable businesses. You could not have, Justin, had me do what I did for you if your business wasn't profitable.
No.
Because in some senses, I made your business not profitable, which is why you fired me. Well, that and a few other things, but but you couldn't.
Gosh.
You couldn't have. I would not have had that opportunity had you not been in a financial position where you could bring on a father of two who was about to be homeless, and you couldn't have done that if things were so tight and you weren't running your business well and you didn't have, good people in place to do the jobs that they needed to do.
I think that's fair, but I think it's all to be ready for when those opportunities come, because they do come along, and a project or, whatever you want to call them, these people that God is putting in your life. Yeah, sometimes to the world it doesn't make sense, but it makes all the sense in the world to us because we know that that's where God has it. And as we've been talking, like, I've been thinking about, like, it really, like, how can you sum all of this stuff up? Like what can you bring it to? And really what makes it different is service. You have to have a servant's heart. If you don't have a servant's heart, you're going to care about the money. You're going to care about the lost time. You're going to care about all these other things. But when you go into something with a servant's heart, man, it makes it so much easier to give someone grace, to love on someone because of how much that we've been given. And that's what we're called to do, is to serve others. We're called to be the hands and feet of Jesus, and that's exactly what he did, no matter what. And I think that's a good spot to find fulfillment, because you can make all the money in the world. And I mean, you hear it all the time. People are like, well, I know guys that make millions of dollars a year, and the most miserable people I know. Well, they lack Jesus. Like, that's really what it comes down to. And if you can serve someone, I mean, it's so fulfilling, and that's what we're called to do. And it's ironic because if that's where we find our fulfillment and, like, truly fulfilled in it, because that's where God has us be, and yet it's one of the most difficult things for us to do at times, because you're making excuses like, oh, well, I'm so busy or whatever it might be. But I don't know. That's just like the word that's been, bouncing around in my mind ever since we've been talking, is like, it really comes down to we're servants.
Right. Greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life. And you can insert whatever you lay down his profits, lay down his business, lay down his image, lay down his, sign on the door, lay down his whatever for one of his friends. Mm-hmm. And that I am willing to make sacrifices for your benefit, period. Not our benefit, but I am willing to make sacrifices for your benefit. And that's the difference between a believer who's a business owner and a non-believer who's a business owner.
Yep.
Enough said?
I don't know. Spence, you got anything?
Well, we got to do Proverbs 32.
Yeah.
Our sacrilegious. What, are you going to weigh in on Proverbs 32 and whether that's sacrilegious or not?
Nope.
Switzerland. So write us some Proverbs 32. The guy's new to business ownership who's a Christian, so the position you were in, and the guy who is a business owner but becomes a Christian. I got to find somebody like that to be on the show. We have a lot of these Christian people who become business owners, but I'm not, like, folks, if you're listening and you know somebody who was a business owner and then became a Christian and is living out their faith in the context of the business they own,
We want to talk to them.
we want to talk to them and see what that looks like. But so give a couple nuggets to those two people we're thinking about.
Well, the first is who I relate to, and I think that if I was to give business advice, it's know your strengths, don't be afraid to admit your weaknesses, and admit your weaknesses to somebody that can help turn them to strengths. Because if you're just admitting that you are falling short to just anybody as a passerby, or that's not going to help you fix that solution. And so look for those opportunities to maximize, like you mentioned the resume I put together. And, I was a little bit thoughtful on how I did that. And I put organization as a strong point. The customer experience is the most important to me because I don't print money. And so we have to have customers.
Right.
What we do to service our customers is we operate equipment. And I put that as a lower value to me than both organization and a customer experience, because I can hire people to run equipment. I'm sure they're out there, and there are people within our organization that do a better job at managing certain things than me, but that is where I'm most valued, is making sure our customers have a good experience and that our organization is being run efficiently. And so if I was more if I wasn't good at those things, then, and I was better at just running equipment, I probably shouldn't be a business owner, because I should go find an operating job somewhere and go make $90,000-$100,000 a year running equipment, because you can do it.
Yeah.
Right. Or go do your own gig, running equipment, doing driveways and, hauling a, tandem axle dunk truck or whatever.
Sure.
And then pour into other people either as customers or pour into people through church, because you don't have as much of a low. You're not doing that 50, 60, 70 hour a week thing. All of those aspects. Find where your sweet spot is, get into it, and go.
Yeah. So just
Sweet.
understand yourself, and it's easier said than done. And
Right.
I would say what has helped me is just the Lord's brought the right people at the right time into our lives and into our organization.
It's amazing how that works.
It really is. It really is. And so, that being said, trying to be a structured person, a lot of times work and construction is chaos. And it's a lot like what we read in Matthew is, do you focus on that chaos, or do you keep your eyes on Jesus and trust what he's got for you? And I'm not saying I do that perfectly at all. I struggle with that seriously.
I do.
I do.
Yeah.
I struggle a lot. I mean, we just had that situation this week where the guys were demoing out a cottage, and they have to, level out the floor because someone thought it was a great idea to span 2x4s 10 feet, 2 foot on center to support the second story. That doesn't work anywhere.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
Maybe in Florida.
Still not Florida.
No, not Florida.
Definitely
Okay.
not Florida. But nothing was supported down below. So now we have to have a structural engineer. Now we're behind. And that's stressful. I do not like getting behind on projects like that, but there's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
But
I lost focus. As a matter of fact, just yesterday, I lost focus. We tore off a roof. The guys opened up the first packet of shingles, and it was the wrong color. And homeowner was like, "Oh, we got a problem." Well, thunderstorms today, and I couldn't get. It was 20 square. It's not like I can just throw a couple of them in the back of a pickup and go down to Grand Rapids.
Why
and pick
not?
them up. So we double underlayment and hoped for the best and ran out there this morning. But I was chasing down different suppliers trying to get a hold of it, and I missed an opportunity. Someone needed me in a context outside of business, and someone needed to be loved and cared for. And because I was so stressed and worried about this thing, I missed it. I totally missed it. Now, thankfully, God moved in some other ways and got that taken care of. But I was so focused on the waves that it, yeah. So
that was good, man. I like that. That was a great devotion.
That was awesome. And then I think we really hammered on kind of that other guy, the guy who's new to being a believer and has been running a business, and it's that servant's heart. You've got to have a servant's heart and be interested in other people's success.
Yeah. It would be interesting to hear somebody what that servant heart development looks like. From going from maybe a moral person or maybe a not moral person, and being a good person and a good business owner, to being a Christian and a business owner. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't even want to take a stab at that, because I'd be talking out of my element. So
right, out of his element. I did not think that's where he was going.
This is a Christian business podcast here.
This is a Christian business podcast. That's right. You know what? You can kiss my element.
Wow, the dad jokes just every time.
They just come out, man. They just come out. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna use the heck out of that. With that, we're gonna close. Spencer, thank you so much for being on. We do appreciate it. We'll put your company's link. You got a website?
Yep.
Yeah. We'll put your website in the comment section or in the description section. And yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for listening.